Welcome, we're the Macomb County Genealogy Group. You can find MCGG at our blog website, on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and at our YouTube channel. You can contact us at either of the listed emails on this slide. The MCGG Friday group has been meeting for over 47 years, and our MCGG Let's Talk Genealogy discussion group has been meeting for 15 years. During this pandemic and during the Mount Clemens Public Library's renovation, we are meeting virtually. MCGG members volunteer their time in a variety of ways to benefit the genealogy community and the Mount Clemens Public Library. This is the MCGG Friday and MCGG Let's Talk Genealogy combined virtual meeting, November 18th, 2020. Our topic tonight is a member favorite, Where Do I Go From Here? We are using the Let's Talk Genealogy discussion format. If this is your first time attending a MCGG meeting, welcome. Attend a meeting and you are a member. MCGG has no dues. If you would like to be added to our mailing list, please send an email to the email shown on the screen. We try to keep our emails down to a reasonable number each month, mostly meeting reminders. And now some announcements.
Teresa, do you want to talk about what's going on with Mount Clemens Public Library?
Yes, right. This week we closed again, and we're providing curbside pickup. So the genealogy room is still not available. All the librarians are required to work from home. Only circ staff is in providing books and videos and whatever else anybody needs. Our copy machine is in the lobby or in the vestibule if people need copies. And that'll be they plan 3 weeks and then reevaluate after 3 weeks to see where the numbers are again. So that's where we are with that. Right now, we're not able to do obituary requests. So that's on hold too. So I put notes up online saying that service won't be done, so people don't send them in because they send in checks that can't, and they just sit. So once I can get in again, I try to do as many obituaries or requests that I can. Okay. So hopefully in a couple weeks, we'll reevaluate, and I'll let you know at the next meeting where we are.
Okay. All right. If most of you probably noticed that I had a request for everyone to fill out a survey for our group on genealogy software and family trees. And let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is what it actually looks like for those that haven't gone there yet. For the 19 that have, thank you very much. And essentially, click on the answer that you want that's appropriate for you, or fill in the blank. And it's very simple. We don't collect names, we don't collect emails. That's all we see from that end. And what it does is this what I see. This is what I see from my end. I can see a chart of everyone's answers tabulated together. And then using this information, if we decide to do some programming on computers or whatnot, genealogy software, we know what is going to be of interest to most of the group. And so we appreciate your responses. And that helps us out. So tonight's topic is, where do I go from here? And so we usually share our genealogy questions our brick walls, and or shares for those that are doing good. And it's kind of like our genealogy version of a show and tell. So is there someone who would like to start? Jolene, you need to unmute yourself if you want to talk. Scroll your mouse down to the lower part of the window, and you'll see in the lower left-hand corner an unmute. Just click that. There you go. Okay, go ahead.
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. I
just said we're all sitting on our hands. We don't want to start.
Well, do you have a problem? A brick wall?
You know, actually, I am I should say I'm still a member, but I moved up north of Lexington, and I'm involved in the Sanilac County Genealogical Society. And I was just curious because we have been unable to meet since last March. And since I've been still in contact with the Macomb group, I was just curious as to how this would work. And my genealogy research, I've been with Mary Lou in Salt Lake City for several years, and it's just a continuous, it never ends.
Right. It's always some question that pops up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're working with the library, and they're hosting the Zoom meeting. We've chosen just to do one meeting a month right now because we're babies at this, and we're getting used to doing this, hopefully. And it hasn't been too bad. And if you go to, let me share my screen again.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, it's okay. That's just me. I just got to click on the right thing. Okay. So if you go to, there we go. Genia webinars. You can see what a lot of other groups are doing, or if there's a particular genealogy group that you're interested in where your ancestors were, you can look to see if any of those groups are hosting their meetings online also. I know a lot of the Ontario Genealogical Society groups are doing Zoom meetings. A lot of them meet towards more of the summer. So they've got a leg up on a lot of us. They're experienced at this. So you can just click on the branch you're interested in. Let's see, who had something going on this weekend? Was it Essex? No way, I don't think I. So you just click on the group that you're interested in and see what and when they're hosting. So there's a lot of things going on out there.
And also what you can let your let the Sanilac County Board know is the Michigan Genealogical Council has done a video on how to present a Zoom meeting for societies, and that is available for free on their website. So your society's leadership can look at that and decide if that's something they want to do. It explains the costs and the different options, and what some of the other societies in Michigan are doing besides us. Some are farther ahead than us, and certainly some haven't gotten going yet.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Somehow you disappeared from my screen, Lisa.
Oh, I should be in there. I'm seeing myself.
I'm back.
You got the gallery view on?
I'm back to the launch meeting thing. And I was just sitting here and it just did it.
Okay. Are you on Windows?
Yeah.
Okay. So at your taskbar at the bottom, do you see the blue film icon camera? Where the programs appear that you got running. So you'll have your internet browser. You see a blue icon that says Zoom meeting?
Okay, got it.
Click on that. That should bring it back up.
Yep, all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
I figured it just got put behind. So Kathleen, do you have any genealogy brick walls or questions or problems or shares?
Well, I'm kind of ashamed to say that I really have not been doing very much. It seems like I did a lot of outdoor gardening and things instead of, and then.
Want to come to my house?
A lot of fun, but I kind of overdid myself and planned too much outside. But the genealogy group that I'm in up by Frankfurt was also not really doing anything. So that was on hold. But I joined a group on Facebook about Norwegian heritage, and that's been kind of interesting and got me kind of perked up to start researching into my Norwegian grandfather and great grandparents a little more than I have, but it seems like I've got pretty much all that I need because I have a cousin that still lives in Norway that when he came over to visit, he just brought everything with him. So I have the basics, but now if I can fill in with, maybe finding more birth records and everything, it's kind of hard in some places in Norway. There's no where they would only, how did this go? You got the cemetery plot for 25 years or something, and then they could bury somebody else there. So I don't know how that works as far as, like, we have found where he has showed me the grave of my great grandmother. So I have that. And he kind of takes care of it now, I guess. So you can keep it longer if you take care of it. But I would like to dig into some things. Like, I know there was one family that they that was in the information that they gave me, that the mother, she was a single mother. Her husband was no longer alive, and two of her sons drowned, and they were like young teenagers. And I have visions of what might have happened, but I would, if I could find out more information about what, really happened to them. Did they fall they lived on the Sogne Fjord, and did they fall into the fjord fishing? Did a boat capsize? I don't know. Just little
the locations?
Like, pardon?
You know the locations where that family was from?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're dealing with Norway, right?
Yes.
Okay. So more than possibility of records on family search. You're going to primarily be looking for church records. There may be some civil records.
Mm-hmm.
My Heritage may also be a good spot to look at. I'm not sure what Ancestry has for Norway yet. If you were Sweden, I tell you to go to Archive Digital. They're just loaded. But those would be the most likely for records. And I'm not sure about the possibility of newspapers, because if they were from a small village.
And it was I cannot remember the date, but it's probably the early to mid 1800s. So
yeah, and so you the smaller the village and the earlier the time period, the less likely there's a newspaper article that would give you the whole story. Anyone else have any suggestions for her? Okay. Well, hopefully that'll help.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Who's next?
Hi, my name is Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
Thank you, Lisa. I've found my family in some of the early censuses There's someone who's done some research and thinks that there's a Native American, and they were in 2 of the census in Macomb. I'm just trying to work back and see if I can find the family. Is there early 1800s? Would there be a good place to look? I possibly found some of her children in the St. Peter's Catholic Mount Clemens site, but haven't looked at it recently. There's one person that's in there that I don't have on my records at all, and I'm wondering if maybe he died at a very young age, and is there any death records for that? Does anyone know that?
Do you know the time period of the death? So we're dealing with Macomb County.
Their births are 1849, 1853, 1848.
Okay, so that's before civil records. So
Okay.
most likely place to find something like that is the church records.
Okay.
And in that early time period, I forget when St. Peter's here started in Mount Clemens. You'll probably want to check the churches in the Detroit area. They may have sent a priest up here, like a circuit rider, to baptize and marry and whatnot, or they may have gone down to Detroit.
Okay.
I have over and watch this.
I have baptismal records for 4 of about 8 of the kids.
What's the family name?
LaGraff, but on this record they have LaGrave. I have her name is Celia Joy, but this record puts her as Gerard, Giard, as her parents.
And maybe check Charbonneau.
Yes. Unfortunately, when the library's open.
Yeah, yeah.
Again.
The library's open.
Yeah, the Mount Clemens Library location that has the Charbonneau books. It was by Al Saren's lifetime work, I believe. There's multiple volumes, and if you have any early people that had anything connected to French Canadian in this early time period, you more than likely will have someone appear in Charbonneau. It's not primary information, but it's derivative, and it's kind of like a never-ending genealogy. And so it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
It clues, yes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't get to it at this moment.
Okay.
Usually we hold these meetings over there. We'll look at that book. Oh.
One other suggestion, although there is no index to it, and again, it's not a source you're going to be able to get to until the pandemic subsides, but most of the early Archdiocese of Detroit church records are on microfilm down at Burton Historical. So once that opens up, if you have a better idea what church and what time period, you can search those microfilms.
On Ancestry Library Edition, there is the Drune. Now, I'm not French Canadian, and my French I do not pronounce correctly, but you can St. Anne's is from down in Detroit is on there, so you can put the surnames in and see if you can find any hits. And library card, sign in and to the library that issued your library card, and then hit the link to go to Ancestry Library Edition. The free remote access was extended till December 31st. Or if you're in Michigan, get that Library of Michigan card. You can find, just search on our website for Library of Michigan, and the link will come up to get to the application for the Library of Michigan card, and then you'll get Ancestry Library Edition, Fold 3, and a few other websites to help you.
Newspapers also.
Yep, newspapers.com. The regular, not the publisher's extra edition. Yeah, you do have to live in Michigan to get the Library of Michigan library card, or be a student attending a Michigan university or college. You're welcome, Mary. Did that help you out? The original question, sorry, you didn't pop up, so I don't, Stephanie, right?
My original question was, is there Native Americans that were in the Mount Clemens area?
Sure.
Yeah, I believe so.
Would there be any kind of records or any way to search for a name in there? I mean, I've got her daughter, the full-blooded Indian. I don't have her name, but I have the one that's married to the Frenchman.
As far as I know, Native Americans didn't keep any written record at that point.
Okay.
And so the church records, if they intermarried, that's where you would find the information. Often, but not always, the priest would write down, the name of the person and then their parents if they know it.
Yeah, I have that.
Seen that in the Canadian side records.
Okay.
Okay, Bev asked about the gravestone rubbings on my wall back there. Those are on Pellon interfacing, the ones on a cotton. And one's from down in Lapeer, up in Lapeer, and one's from Canada and one's from New York. I didn't do them on anything that was fragile. You got to be careful. Some states it's against the law to do the rubbings. It's those ones there are wax rubbings. I have done the tin foil, the aluminum rubbings, which is a lot gentler on the stone, and then you take a picture and it can bring up the text a lot easier. Start off with just the water because it doesn't do any harm to the stone.
Okay, so I see the one that says John
Dunham.
Dunham. And now is that on, you said wax, is it wax paper or parchment paper?
Thick child's crayon.
A thick black child's crayon, got it.
Yeah, or whatever color you want. One's blue, one's black, the other one's black, and the willow tree has a little green on it.
Okay.
Yeah, the two large ones were laying on the ground. The one's embedded in cement, and then the other one's just laying on the ground.
Okay, now I've got some that my dad did a long time ago on my ancestors all over Canada, and I have them rolled up. How did you mount those? Okay,
mine were rolled up from whenever I did them. Those are canvas stretchers. I measured the image of the stone, and then I ordered through Joann's the size of canvas stretcher I needed.
Okay.
And then I have an electric staple gun, and I staple gunned it just like I would if I was doing a canvas for painting. Oh. You just you can't pull so tight with the interfacing.
And I noticed that there's varying grays, like deep gray and light gray. Is there a method to that? I'm looking at Maria D. And right below her, to me, looks very, right below her, Maria D is dark.
That's because I went over it a few more times.
So it was like your artistic license to bring things out.
Well, yeah, that one was on the ground, and I knew it wasn't going to break or chip or damage or anything like that. So that's my first concern whenever I decide to. And I've only done it, I think I've got one more. That's it. So I very gently, and then because the bumps on there, I stone in that, I just did it a little firmer.
Ah, nice.
But that's it.
It brings it out. And now I'm looking at your tree. And is that painted on the wall?
No. That was a Christmas gift several years ago. It can be hung, or it can be, there's a display mount thing. So it could be sitting on a coffee table. It's actually from Hallmark.
Oh, cute.
So you could hang photos, the little photo things on it. I don't think she ever bought me any of the photo frames.
Oh.
So right now it's up there bare.
I'm trying to learn how to display,
things and put the photos on.
Ah, good. Because after you do all this genealogy, you really need to share it. And people get bored really quick, but if you do a nice display, which you've done, it's interesting like that.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, I was also looking on the Mount Clemens, you're from Mount Clemens Facebook site. And they go...
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, that's a new one to me too.
Yeah.
Well, they
post a lot of nice pictures of old Mount Clemens.
Yes, and they delve into Mount Clemens families and family names and things like that. And I had a question for the two library folks here, Debbie and Teresa. It surprises me that
Is it a Facebook group?
Yes.
That's why I'm not familiar with it. I'm not on Facebook.
Very good. Well, apparently, we have a number of portraits of our historical people in the library, plus a lot of other paintings that are really nice, plus some art, that is amazing in the library. But none of that appears in the databases in the library. And, stuff that happened back in the 70s, it's like historical now. So there's a wonderful tiled piece as you walk into the library. We used to hang little astronauts and little people on it. And people have asked me about that and who that artist was. I'm just kind of getting into art and everything that's in the basement of the library. So was that ever photographed and put in the database with that little paragraph that explains it? That's my question.
Is that in there, Debbie?
Teresa.
I don't know.
I'm trying to be quiet here because this is not my...
I know it's not.
I'm anymore. Okay. So the Michaels mural, there are photographs in the digital archive, I think, of him installing it. And so it explains about his career. If people don't know about Glenn Michaels, he's done tile mosaics and murals for decades, and he's responsible for the one in the State Library that surrounds the big tree that's in the middle of the building. That Michigan mosaic that surrounds the tree, that is also his work. Anyway, I think you can find that photo in the digital archive. The Hayward portraits that are in the basement, I'm not sure if I ever photographed all of them while I was there. I think I did a couple of them, and they would be in the digital archive. I'm pretty sure that the John R. Murphy portrait is in there for sure. I'm not sure about the other ones. And that ugly self-portrait, I know I never took a picture of that one, but so yeah, you're right. They need to be, the rest of them need to be done.
Do you mean the ugly self-portrait where he's wearing kind of like a artist coat or a lab?
Yeah, he looks like he's giving the whole room the evil eye. Yeah.
But I
was never fond of that one.
It's signed by some guy named Hardy, Hardy.
Yeah.
And I had called.
It's not a self-portrait, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, but I'm wondering who this Hardy is. I have looked everywhere for him on Facebook and, a lot of different websites to find out who is this guy that, you have a picture of that he did. Was he a student? Did he live in Mount Clemens? Like, how did the library get that?
I think he was a student of Hayward's.
Ah, okay, very interesting. Good, good. Well, thank you.
And I don't know how we got I was there 34 years, and that was on the wall when I arrived, so I don't know the provenance of that.
Okay. Well, one last question on Hayward is Kim Parr at the Crocker House said in October to me, you know, his sister, Maud Hayward, never married, probably had MS or some other neurological disease. She did graduate from Mount Clemens High School. She did go on to become a teacher, but I don't know if she got a degree. She did teach, and she was supposed to be a famous artist on her own. Now, that was all news to me. Have you ever heard anything about Maud? And how would I go about searching out a college degree where she worked as a teacher?
Well, once you can get back into the library, we have a file on the Hayward family. And I know there's stuff about Maud and her life in there. I don't remember whether it tells exactly where she went to school, but I would start there and pull out all the details that are available, and then you know what you have to go find.
Ah, good, thanks.
Thank you, Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. Anyone else? And I'll read through the next question that's in the question, a share.
Mary Lou's got something on the comments.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay. Brick wall on Sarah Ann Ward, supposedly the first white child born on Walpole Island, Canada, daughter of George Ebenezer Ward and Ellen McGuire in 1826. She married Thomas Kingston in Detroit in 1843. She died of a gunshot wound in Detroit when her son was cleaning his gun. She was only 38. Census and other records of her children say she was born in Scotland, Canada, Maine, Vermont. Okay. Mary Lou, what else do you need to know?
I knew this when I started genealogy 45 years ago. I know no more now than I did then. If I put George Ebenezer Ward in a search on Google or anything else, nothing comes up with that name. Supposedly, according to my mother, he might have come from Pennsylvania and was in the War of 1812 and maybe was in Canada then. And she said something about him rowing across the St. Clair River to work in shipbuilding in Marine City. There was a Ward family in Marine City that does not belong to him. There's a big Ward family in Michigan that had freighters and all that, and that was related to the ones in Marine City. That does not seem to be connected either. I have no idea of any siblings of hers. I know nothing more about that. The cemetery, Elmwood Cemetery, said she was born in Scotland. It's the only place that says she was born in Scotland. I've every time I went to Salt Lake City, I looked for something else, and I never found anything. No, Walpole Island was made an Indian reservation in the 1830s, and they took the white squatters off. There was a list that somebody did about 20 years ago of the squatters' names that were taken off, and none of them were wards.
Okay. Have you... And I'm typing here for a minute. Okay, let me see that. All right. Have you looked to see, did you ever check to see if George is in the land petitions database at Library and Archives Canada?
There is a George Ward that was very famous that was on the Thames River and had a way station there in a hotel at the end of the Long Woods. It's not that George Ward family, because years ago I contacted them. I found out all they knew about that George Ward, and it does not fit.
Okay. Did you locate the family after they moved off the island?
Nope. All I know is that the daughter was married to Thomas Kingston, and I think it's St. Paul's Church in 1843. And they lived down in Corktown.
In the last year, you've got them on the island?
No.
No. Okay.
That's just what the family said.
Okay. Family story. Okay. And
there is a Walpole in Canada other than Walpole Island, and I even searched that, and it's on Lake Erie, I think, along about there, and I didn't find anything there.
Okay. And she ends up in Detroit, 43. And she was what, 20?
There are other wards in Detroit, but I have no idea whether there's nobody that lives close to them by the name of Ward.
Okay, is Walpa Allen Canadian or American?
Canadian.
Would she have to become an American citizen? Is there some way to look for that?
Back then, I don't think there would be.
No, if Thomas Kingston was a U.S. citizen, she would have been automatically naturalized upon marriage at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so she's 17 when she's married. You would think she'd be with family at some point. And you never found her on the 1840 census.
Well, she's female, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about church records?
My brother checked all the church records, and there's nothing on the marriage that lists another ward. I've been down to Burton and gone through them, and I didn't find anything else on it.
We're talking about the church that handled, what's the oldest church in town?
St. Anne's.
Yes.
I've been through all the Canadian records on Drouet or wherever it is, and I didn't find anything there either.
Okay.
Thinking she might have been from a family that was Catholic and married in Protestant church and a Presbyterian church.
Right. I think you're stumping me, Mary Lou.
Well, it's stumped me for 40 years. So.
all I can tell you about my Algonac and that area, ancestry back to 1800 and 1810, is they were married by a itinerant minister out of Monroe, Michigan. And
Monroe.
So he came all the way up into Algonac, St. Clair County, and married my 1800 Scottish ancestor.
I was told that the only way that there would be a church record would be an itinerant minister by boat coming along there. However, I did find a George Ward listed in the 1830 census in Monroe, but I don't know what happened to him.
Okay.
And I did check the Macomb County court records, and there is a George Ward listing there that Ann got for me, but I mean, she got the index to it, and I haven't been into that because I have to make a trip out there to do it.
Do you know what time period for the Macomb County record?
I'm not sure right now. It was fairly early.
Okay.
And I don't remember whether it was a deed or what it was, but it was something that there was a court record.
Because it's possible if it's early enough, it might be on either Family Search or on Ancestry. You know, depending if it's a probate, it might be on Ancestry. If it's a deed, it might be on Family Search.
Does Ancestry have more than an index to probate records back then? I can check.
I know there's a searchable index, but you know, with most indexes, they don't get every single record. Hang on, let me look something up.
Aren't we talking about Detroit when you go back into the 1820s and 30s?
Yes. Thomas Kingston came over in 1836.
Right.
And I don't know whether she was living in Detroit. I'm assuming she was living in Detroit when he met her.
Land.
These are interesting questions for me too, but Wayne County was into St. Clair, what, 18? When did the record stop as far as going into Wayne County?
Anne would probably know that a little better. The deeds and mortgages start on Family Search for Macomb County in 1818.
Which is
and
when
they
Macomb
have
County
indexes
started.
for that time period.
Which is when Macomb County started, was 1818. So.
Right.
I did find that there was a George Ward that came from Canada that was up in Sanilac County that had children that were born over in that Canada before he came over. But I've never been able to find out anything more about the family background on it.
See what Sanilac has on Family Search. Land and property, deed records in Sanilac start in 1835. You got to go to a family history library or affiliate to get to them because they're locked. I'm still contemplating going to the library and sitting outside. I'm not desperate yet.
But the other thing would be if this whole family moved to Sanilac County, how would she end up in Corktown in Detroit?
At 17, could have been for a job. I would think they would be closer to that, but
who knows?
Yeah. There's no probate for Sanilac on Family Search.
I've had an awful lot of young women from a cousin go work in another cousin's house,
right?
And they show up as a boarder on the census.
And there's gory details about the death in the Detroit papers, but nothing was mentioned about any of her family.
Okay. All right. Michigan.
You were so lucky to find her in the newspaper. What were those gory details?
About how she only lived overnight and she was expected to die from the pistol wound to her stomach.
Oh, to her stomach. So she was probably standing while he was sitting cleaning the gun.
He was cleaning the gun in the kitchen and she walked in front of him and it went off. It had a shell in it.
Wow. How could, like a 1 in a million chance that would intersect? Wow.
Yeah, that just happened in the UAW where the guy killed the woman or the woman killed the guy. That in the last 10 years.
Well, it kind of ran in the family because my great-grandfather, who was her son, shot and killed his brother when his brother was 14 and he was 17. And he had a pistol. And what it said in the Detroit paper, which I thought was interesting, it said, "When will parents stop their children from wandering around the streets of Detroit with a gun?"
So do you think it was a fit of rage? Like he got mad and shot his brother?
They were arguing and he was chasing his brother and held the gun up to his brother's head. And it said that the police decided that he didn't pull the trigger intentionally. It just accidentally went off. But the brain was spattered all over the kitchen. That gave gory details again.
They loved the gory details back then.
An 85-year-old.
Betty Lou, oh, so good grief. Mary Lou. On Ancestry for Macomb County, they have the calendars that start in 1849 for the probate. The estate files start in 1825. There doesn't appear to be an index, but if you go to the Mount Clemens website and go to the Probate Index, there you might find the information, estate file number that you need to check.
Mm-hmm.
But you thought it was a deed that she had found for you?
Well, let me see if I can find it.
So an 85-year-old cousin just told me up in the Algonac area that the son of the 1800 Scottish ancestor killed his brother in a fist fight, basically kicking and all these types of stuff. He was held in jail for 6 months. When they came to court, they said the devil took over, and you were not responsible for killing your brother. The guy grows up who survived, the brother dead, sure, and that means there are 2 people buried on the Algonac State Park that the state doesn't want anybody to know about. But the brother who did the killing grows up, has a family. Would you marry a killer? Oh my gosh.
Well, the other thing I was going to mention for everybody is that tonight before dinner, I had an email that gave sites for Irish research. And one of them was Canadiana for Canada. And they have some newspapers on there and you can do a search. And I searched for my maiden name of Straith. There were 2, they were over there in Canada and 2 of them were ministers. And Straith is a rather unusual name. And there were 805 listings from sources that they had that you can go into for free.
Wow.
So that's what I'll be doing the next couple of days.
Yeah, some of the Library and Archives of Canada databases, the images are actually on Canadiana or the Heritage websites there, and they're both now all free. So you can spend days going through that stuff. It's not all electronically indexed, so you've got to, do your digital mouse click browse.
Well, that's the only thing that I found on it was it gave me the page that it was on, but making the image enlarge, I have to hit it a number of times and then search for it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not like Fulton History and you get that highlight spot and that's where you got to enlarge on.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear more about the bodies at Algonac State Park. St. Clair County's having their genealogy meeting tomorrow, so.
Okay.
Well, okay, so what was the question about the Algonac?
I've never heard, I'm from that area, and I've never heard of there being bodies at the state park.
I have so the 85-year-old cousin gave me a copy of the letter written by Angus Smith. And Angus Smith in 1912 bought the several acre strip of land going from the river inwards from the Harrow family. So the Harrow family owned that land for 100 years. He bought it in 1912, and the state came along in 1935 and bought it from him. I don't know if they forced the sale or not, but the letter states, I never planted anything over the family grave site, and he doesn't specifically locate the gravesite on the thing. The 85-year-old cousin lives at Roberts Landing, says they really didn't start working in Algonac Park until about early 1940s. So during the war, you're working on a park? I don't understand what you're talking about. But maybe Conservation Corps before the war, who knows? Aerial picture of the area of 1935 or so, that's at Port Huron County land record shows a barn that is estimated to be 70 feet long. The biggest enlargement of that aerial photograph, a 70-foot barn turns out to be 1.25 inches in size. So a cemetery of 1 or 2 or anything more than that, I don't know, crosses is not going to show up in an aerial picture. But somebody sent good old Joe down there during the state park, and let's get rid of that burial plot down there and make it a parking lot. And I'm guessing on that. But yeah, Alexander Harrow is buried on Algonac Park, and so is that kid that died at age 19.
Very interesting.
Nobody wants to know about it. Nobody wants to know about it. Oh, we don't have a cemetery here. I shouldn't be saying anything about it now because I don't know who's listening in. If there is a piece of documentation for this, they'll hide it on me, and I'll never know exactly where they're buried. But I got a copy of the letter.
It'd be an interesting question for the St. Clair County group.
And I wonder if you can find the grave site or any foundations from where maybe stones have gotten covered over by using that old divining method that I think Mr. Grow used to use over at the Clinton cemetery. Has anyone ever seen him do that? He's dead now, but no. Anyways, to try and find people. But here in Mount Clemens, we do have the early Clemens. You know, Mr. Clemens and his wife, Elizabeth, are still buried right here in town. And they took all the other people from that cemetery and put them over into, you know, Clinton Grove. I said Aaron Grove, but I meant Clinton Grove Cemetery. And so they all got moved. But I understand that they didn't use really good wood to bury people back in the 1800s. And so by now, how much could be left? And then over in Roseville, there's a Rotary Park. And I understand that that park used to be a cemetery. And when all the stones got degraded, they just took them away and put up swing sets. So, you know, this can happen. There can be people buried around. I don't know if you'd find much today, but that's...
What's the definition of a cemetery? What's the definition of a cemetery? If you don't bury somebody in a cemetery 100 years after that last burial, it's no longer a cemetery.
There are some protections in Michigan, but...
Yes. Unfortunately, over the years, many cemeteries either got supposedly moved or covered over, because there's at least 2 in Fraser that we don't know what ended up happening to them, but people remember them from the 19 teens and 1920s that I've done some research on, and we can't figure out where people were moved to. But there was one at right by the Grand Trunk Tracks in Utica Road, and then the one next to the old St. John Lutheran Church.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else got a question?
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
I was able to get into the Clinton Township Main Public Library by City Hall there and use their machine that scans documents, and that went really well. And she said, "Oh yeah, I go to that meeting now." I don't know if she's listening tonight or not, but she referred me to a fellow named Al over in New Baltimore, who, for about half the cost of what you hear on the radio or TV for making copies of all of your media, videos and film and VHS, all that, about half the cost. And he's doing it right locally here. He says everybody else send their stuff over to China or Vietnam or something, but he's doing it right in his own house. And yeah, Al has treated me very kindly. I haven't done any work with him, but he's been very good on the phone.
Okay. Anyone else has anything to?
I would like to ask a question.
Sure.
Has anybody done a DNA test and found a parental incident?
No, I've had further out.
I have.
You have?
Yeah. My son had the DNA done, and it came back that it did not match any of the Duncans going back. And it turns out, I think I figured it out because his great-grandfather was born in either 1827 or 1829 in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And the only match that my son has had in 4 years is a Dr. Lister, whose ancestors came from Canada. And there were Listers listed on Ancestry in Halifax at that time. And the wife died, and her maiden name was Hill, and her married name was Lister. She died in 1827 after this man was born. And I have a feeling that maybe she might have died after she'd had a child, and the child was maybe raised as a Duncan in the Duncan family, but I can't find any church records back there.
Yeah.
But his middle name was Hill, and I don't know of any Hill relatives, and her name was Hill.
Well, I talked my husband into taking a test, and we found out that the man that he thought was his father is not. But in having the information out at a couple of places, we found out that his father came from England and worked as a servant in houses in Detroit, New York. He lived in New York for a long time, and several of his brothers came over also. And what I found out is that this man moved around a lot, and my husband has relatives in Sweden now, because his first wife was Swedish, and in New York area, they hung around with a lot of people from Sweden. And my husband's half sister was born in the 1930s from a Swedish woman. And I got emails from this man in Sweden asking, actually, I think it was Finland, not Sweden, sorry, asking how the heck my husband showed up in his list of relatives. So the two of us did a lot of research, and we found out that my husband has a half brother and a half sister. Now, my husband was born in the late 40s. His half sister was born in 1935, and his half brother was born in 1946. The one half brother is actually a legal birth from a marriage that the man had. But it was very interesting trying to do the backtracking. And what we found out, this man that contacted me from Finland found out that he found his mother's baptismal certificate, and my husband's father and his first wife were the godparents in her baptismal, and actually he was her father. It's really kind of bizarre.
It's a small, small world.
Yes, it is.
It's really crazy. But what we're finding out is that because of these DNA tests, there's a lot more of this going on than, what people thought.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, everybody's dead, so you can't ask any questions or find out any other information, just the records that are published. So he has a half, what do you call him? A half nephew.
Okay.
In Finland, and his other half brother and half sister are both deceased. So it's strange. It's disconcerting. It has uprooted my husband's whole thought of family and situation. And I just wondered if anybody else has come across any of this kind of stuff and how they handled it.
I think there's a Facebook support group for that kind of situation, where non-paternal, not parent expected.
I'll have to look that up, because it's really colored his thought process now.
Mm-hmm.
It has explained some things to him, but not others.
More questions than answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then filtering down to his kids, his kids are trying to figure out, well, if we're not Scottish like we thought we were, then what are we? And you're British. And I did connect with a man on Ancestry who has actually researched the whole line of this particular family going back to late 1600s. And it's really kind of amazing because there's some British royalty in there too. Of course, it's quite distant, so it doesn't. But the man that did this said that my husband's father was his third cousin 3 times removed or something, you know, quite distant, but still.
Yeah.
He had all the information I needed to look at and determine. But he worked as a servant, as a butler, and he was at a wealthy Wayne County person. He also was in Florida at another wealthy person. And the woman that he had a relationship with that created my husband's half-sister also worked. They were all servants. You know, they came over from England and Finland and all those areas, and they worked in homes in New York, Detroit, Florida as servants. And I don't know if anybody has ever seen any of the census records that lists the people from these homes where they worked, and they all list them as maids, butlers, or servant.
Mm-hmm.
It's really quite interesting. This one family he worked for, that he must have had 20 people on the census that were all servants in the household.
My great-grandmother was a housekeeper for a female doctor down in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother got married.
My grandmother was a nanny to a doctor in Detroit. And my grandfather, this is my mother's side, my grandfather went to Detroit and told her that they were getting married. They supposedly were engaged or something, but the whole family, my grandmother's family and my grandfather's family, they all worked for automotive bigwigs in Detroit. They were all servants, groundskeepers, all that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, take a look around for that support group, or
I'm going to
check with, there might be something, it might be listed on the, I'm trying to remember the website. It's a website for dealing with DNA and adoption. Usually have a lot of links to, let's see. Is that the one?
And while you're looking for that, Lisa,
yep,
in 2016, Bill Griffith, who was a known TV commentator, did a DNA test, found a non-paternal event, and wrote a memoir called Stranger in My Genes. And it kind of goes through what...
he also wrote a follow-up. So I know, I think that book's in the library system.
Yeah, yes, it is, because I checked it out once. What is the follow-up book called?
Of course, you're going to ask me that one.
I'm looking for it now.
I think it's you could probably find the link to that DNA support group with ISOG. Let me copy. Let me get the welcome page. Okay, I'll put it down in the chat to everyone. So it's the International Society of Genetic Genealogy, and I just shared in the chat the link to the wiki welcome page. And wait, there's the, okay. I'll get my mouse back on the right screen. Okay, and here's the link to their website. And then that will more than likely have the link that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
For...
It looks like Bill's second book was The Lost Family, and I'm on a Twitter page right now, and it looks like they had a schedule. He tweeted yesterday that they scheduled an event for this evening on DNA with unexpected results. It's a Zoom meeting that I think is happening as we're speaking. But
which group's holding it?
So the sign up was at AmericanAncestors.org.
Okay.
So there is a bit of chat out there.
Yeah. The library system does also have a second book, The Lost Family.
Now, would that be in the cooperative?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's at Chesterfield, East Point, McDonald, Romeo, Shelby, and both Warrens. And The Lost Families at Armada, Romeo, Roseville, Shelby, St. Clair. So whatever library yours is, you should be able to order it through the cooperative.
Okay. Alrighty then.
Okay. Yeah, check that. This should have links there at ISOG. Let's see. Speakers, consultants. Nope. Come on. Hang on. It should be on one of those sites for the adoption and DNA.
Okay. I saved the chat, so I've got the links.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Anyone else have a question, a brick wall?
Has anybody been following along with what the Mayflower Society is doing with the New England Genealogical Society? There was some type of announcement in the last week or two. Yes, they digitized the silver books, and now they've digitized all of the applications that people who have been members of the Mayflower Society have submitted. But then something more recently than that, and I'm just wondering if anybody listening has been following the Mayflower developments as they've been digitizing.
I see they have the database. I think if you go on AmericanAncestors.org, you should probably be able to find the press release.
I couldn't understand it. I knew people like you could understand it.
Well, they've got, like you said, they've I'm gonna get a window out of the way. They've taken the descendants membership applications from 1620 to 1920 and digitized them. I'm not logged in at the moment. There's a searchable database. Let's see what else does it. I know the two groups, the NEHGS and the Mayflower Society, are working together on a lot of things.
How come my friends who have, how come the State Library for Ancestry.com doesn't come up with the same people who have Ancestry.com on a subscription of their own?
You lost me on that one.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm saying I've got friends who have been giving me they have been doing searches for me using using newspapers.com.
Okay.
And when I use that, which you guys have gotten me into for the state library,
right?
I'm not finding this. I'm not finding the results of their search are better than the results of my searching for the same person.
It probably depends on how you and the other person are differing and how you're entering it. Are you using the search, or are you doing a browse and searching from the browse? That could result in different hits. Whether you're using the search parameter, like quotes to, exact phrase or things like that, that would make a difference. You should be able to see that there's a hint, even if you can't access the Publisher's Extra, which are the Detroit Free Press. With the basic subscription to newspapers.com, you can see the hit, but you can't view the image for the publisher's extra if you don't have that part of the subscription. So that could be it.
What type of subscription does the state give us?
The basic, minus Detroit Free Press, because that's a separate database through ProQuest.
I was wondering, I've got a 1920 marriage and I've not been able to get to it. And Mount Clemens has it all, but we can't get in there.
The library, State of Michigan library, you know, access things will get you the exact same ProQuest database as what Mount Clemens has.
Go to the ProQuest?
Yeah, you're going to go to find. Just a second. I'll tell you what the database is called.
How many people are tuned in tonight?
It's the ProQuest Historical Newspapers, Detroit Free Press, 1831 to 1999. So when you go to the database list for the Library of Michigan card, if you want to look at Detroit Free Press stuff, that's where you're going to click.
One more time.
Okay. When you're using your Library of Michigan library card to access the databases, the free remote access, you're instead of clicking on the newspapers.com, you're going to click on the ProQuest Historical Newspapers, Detroit Free Press, 1831 to 1999.
Okay.
The search engine's a little different there, but that's where you'll find your Detroit Free Press articles.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's really funny doing that search on my husband's father. I found he had a business for a short time in Detroit, and I never found any articles about him, but I did find an ad that he had placed in the Free Press.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
It at least confirms place, location, time.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, my husband had actually met him because his mother worked for him. So we're kind of wondering, you know, what the situation was there. He had a business for a short time, and she did his bookkeeping for him. So we figure something happened, but you know, you don't know exactly.
You don't know the details.
You don't know the details. Yes. You know, and he was not a nice man from what I understand, and some other things we have found out. So there is that.
Okay.
I can add one thing. My family found some people that we were surprised were relatives. One of my mother's first cousin, she's only 30 years old, and like my mom is almost 90, and she lives in LA, and she and her twin brother were adopted out of the family with no one knowing about it. And that's how it happened with them. So I have become friends with her on Facebook, and I am her real connection to the Reichenbach family that she, you know, genetically belongs to. And
wow.
So she ended up with COVID, and the next time I see her on Facebook, she has a big Band-Aid on her neck from being on the ventilator. And all I could do is offer this girl support, you know, and I just, nobody out in the world, but we have genes that we share, and I got her back like a mom, you know. And maybe your own mother didn't raise you, but the family still support you, you know. And I think that's kind of nice. Another family member who I know was adopted out said, you didn't want us then, and you don't want us now. And I felt so bad that they harbor bad feelings. So I guess this has brought up a lot of interesting things, and I hope your husband gets through it. You know, it would be shocking to know after your parents are gone that,
oh yeah,
parents? Oh, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like he was the only child. I mean, he has an older sister, and he's got 5 other siblings, half siblings. So it's like, why me? Out of the whole group of 7, why me? You know?
Oh, is he in the middle, or is he the beginning, or
He's
what?
number 2. Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's 5 years difference between him and his sister.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow, what happened there? You know?
Right.
And me, I come from a family where there was 11 children in 13 years. I mean, you know, there was hardly any gaps at all.
I love the stories that we've gotten from the genes. I mean, black and white information can develop into very interesting stories, you know, and now we can understand, you know, our ancestors a little bit better. I found one ancestor that's connected to my mom and my dad. And I said, there is absolutely no way, because there was never any intermarriages. They come from different areas. Well, there was. When I traced it back enough generations, I found it, you know, but I didn't know that woman. She changed her name right away, and then the name never followed down. So I was all set to say, you know, they make mistakes, but I verified their data.
Yes, I have found second cousins that have married one another back in the 1800s. And it was really kind of funny when I was finding the woman's name, and I'm like, well, how did she have her married name when she was still living at home? And then doing a little more digging, found out that they were second cousins.
Ah. Well, could I ask one last question before this session closes? You know, there's an Alan Naldred that wrote a lot of history and kept track of things like all the poorhouses that people lived in. He had a recent book on that, and he had a book on the Thumb fires that, and he did so many interviews of family members and things. He died in September, and I literally saw cases and cases of books at his house before he died. And I just wonder, has anyone heard? He self-published all those books. His house has been sold through the court system. You know, he went to probate. And I just have this terrible feeling a dumpster pulled up and they emptied the house. Has anyone heard about how to buy Alan Naldred's books? I hear mouth going, but I don't hear anything. Bob, are you talking?
Yes, let me unmute myself because I was on the website. I was on Google with Alan's books. A lot of them were published by Arcadia or a couple other publishers, and they're still available on Amazon.
I was going to say ones.
Pardon? Well, he's got a list from 2015 through 2019.
Oh, really?
Yes. If you starting with the Lost Towns of Eastern Michigan and going through a guide to the governors, which was just published in 2019, or Independent Car Companies published in 2020. So there's a few titles that were published. In fact, the latest one was published May 30th of 2020. So he had a few books en route, and he wasn't all self-published. Hopefully, if there's material that he published himself, certainly it would still be under copyright, and somebody in the family will eventually land with it, and hopefully they figure out a way to make it available.
Yeah, I've called his church, and I've called the funeral home that handled it, and I've sent Facebook notes to his sisters, and it was those last couple that he did, like in May. And do you see the poorhouse? All of Michigan, he did all the poorhouses.
I've got Independent Car Companies, Michigan's Forgotten Celebrities, Capitalists and Clowns, Michigan's Great and Small, Guide to the Governors, Great Thumb Fire, Chesterfield Township, New Baltimore. Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of them, but I'm not seeing the one on the poorhouses. Yep, there it is. Poorhouses and Poor Farms of Michigan.
Oh, you got it on Amazon then, because that's the one.
Yeah, it's under Google Books, and it looks like Amazon does let me pop that up here.
Is Amazon fulfilling it?
Yeah, it's nope, it's out of print, limited availability according to Amazon. But they do have they're showing some paperback titles starting at $11.99. So looks like 3 new and 1 used. So somebody's got them someplace. But yeah, you can find it. You can find it on Amazon. I did a quick search while we come back over to the meeting. There we are.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Any other questions, shares?
I was in contact with the Fraser Historical Society this afternoon. In my moving out to Arizona, I've got 2, we'll call them imitation Hickok chairs. And they said, oh no, we really don't have any space at the Fraser Historical Society. But a Hickok chair was a straight back chair with a cane type of seat, painted black with. But anybody have any ideas where I could maybe find someone interested in having these in their museum?
Museums are not my forte.
Yeah. Would the Crocker House be interested in them?
I'll call them. Haven't done it yet. If I take these to Salvation Army, it's a crime against nature.
You could try the Packard Proving Ground. They have been developing the insides of that building there when the caretaker used to live there, and people would bunk in there to work at the proving ground. And I know they were trying to, but what year do you think they were? What era?
The Hickok chairs were probably at least 100 years ago, and I think basically earlier than that.
The Crocker House likes Victorian things, and I think that went to like 1905. So they're kind of strapped for room. So, but you could call them; they do answer the phone. Yep.
And they may be able to give you other resources to check out, other places to contact.
Thank you. I got 2 tonight. Thank you. The Packard and did you say Packard?
Yeah, like the car.
Okay, Packard and Crocker.
All right. Anyone else?
I have a relative who was buried in Howell, Michigan, and there isn't an indication that she might have been buried at a cemetery. The family left at the area, and the husband went back to Germany. So anybody have a suggestion of how
what time frame are you talking about?
I can't remember now. Pretty long ago. I can't. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone. She died about 1854.
54, okay. And you said how?
Yeah. They had bought and sold property a lot because he couldn't teach. He was a professor in Germany, and they came to the United States. But he didn't finish the total program to be a doctorate, so he only mostly ended up teaching German.
Okay.
But I have lots of property that they bought and sold, and then he went back to Germany, and his kids were all scattered around Michigan. 2 of them were in the Civil War.
Okay, in that early time period, there wouldn't have been like a civil death record.
Okay.
So a church record would be what you're looking for.
Okay.
Because she's the wife, the odds that there's a probate for her are very slim.
Okay.
As opposed to if she was male and him. There might be a probate depending on how much property or money they had. But because we're dealing with a female, depending if they were more rural or in the city, you might, there might be a newspaper article.
Okay.
If not, it's going to be hit and miss in that time period. Anyone else have any ideas for her? That's what I got so far.
Okay, thank you.
Have you tried those things?
No, I've just looked at all the property that they bought and sold.
Okay.
The oldest son didn't want to share anything, and his brother got killed in the Civil War. I couldn't talk to any of the direct family members because they've all been dead. And so some of that information, I've talked to somebody who's done a lot of research with the family. They think maybe the husband went back to Germany and maybe lived with his sister, but I haven't been able to figure that out either.
Do you know whether they were Catholic or Lutheran?
Probably Lutheran, because there's a lot of pastors in the family.
What area of Germany they came from?
She came from Gotten, Gottingen. That was where she was born.
Okay.
And he was in Walsrode, Kingdom of Hanover. And they were married in Gottingen.
Okay. You could try, have you tried Ancestry Library Edition or the home version? There's at least 4 different databases for the Evangelisch, which is the equivalent here of Lutheran, records online. Indexing isn't the best, but if you know the locations and what the parish would be, you can manually search also.
Okay.
And if he went back and the sister was in the same spot where they had come from, and you may find another marriage for him or a death record.
He did there was a lady that was in his area in Michigan. She seemed to go over to Germany after he left the United States. And she came back, and she, in the census, only went by her maiden name, but in the cemetery, she's buried by his name. So I think that he married her, but then she came back right away to the United States.
Okay.
So it's kind of a strange story.
Yeah. But stranger things have happened, so
I'm sure.
It's a possibility. Yeah, I would, if you use your library card and get into Library Edition, if you don't have the home version, check those Evangelisch databases out.
Okay.
They cover a variety of areas, and they're not all, like all the records for Hanover aren't in one of the databases. You kind of got to check all 5 of them. 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
I wish they would have them separated out by province, but they don't. It would make it a little easier. Anyone else?
What's the name of that St. Clair County meeting tomorrow night?
It's probably the St. Clair County, was it Historical and Genealogical Group or?
St. Clair County Genealogy and Historical Society.
Okay.
Let me grab their Facebook page really quick.
Start at 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock on Zoom. Oh, let's see.
Do you want to take my phone number?
Do you have to be a member to get the Zoom information?
I don't think so. I'm gonna post their Facebook page in the chat.
Okay.
It's yes, tomorrow at 7. I don't think I'm gonna make it tomorrow night because I have other obligations on Thursday nights.
Oh yeah. Well, I need to develop ties because it's like a little spirit looking over my shoulder saying, "Find me, find me."
Yeah, the Carol Bogan, Bogan, she heads up the group. Their Facebook page is, well, part of it's I think part of it's private for groups, and I'll send Carol a message that maybe some people will be wanting to join tomorrow night.
Do you know Pat Runyon?
Name's not familiar.
She's active. She's been on city council or whatever for Cottrellville.
Still here. I'm trying to see if there was another way. Are you on Facebook, John?
I am on Facebook.
Okay, if I
can come back to you.
No, I'm just saying, well, when we're done here, go locate their website, their Facebook page, and maybe make contact with them. You can get an invite in to that meeting. I'm not seeing it. So where is it? I see other groups being talked about. But yeah, make that connection there. Okay, anyone else?
I've got one.
Sure, Mary Lou, go ahead.
I have an ancestor, Peter Steffes, who also went by the name of Stevens. The family went by Stevens some of the time in Detroit, some of the time they didn't. I don't know when he died for sure. I know my great-grandmother listed the death of a baby in Detroit death records, and the record before that says Peter Stevens, and it was done by, I think by her, put in as a death record, and it says murdered. She was not very good on her dates. I tried all the Detroit papers and didn't find anything that said murdered at that time. I had a Detroit Free Press subscription. I know all of his background, know exactly when he was born. I have all the background for 3 generations in Germany. I have no idea when he died. His wife died in 1876, which was after this notation. And it says in the Detroit Free Press, wife of Peter Steffes. Now, I didn't think they usually put something in the paper that said wife of, without saying that he was deceased if he was deceased. So, and they didn't have much money. They lived down Corktown area. So I've never been able to figure that out. I don't know when he died for sure.
Okay.
But I have a feeling that the Peter Stevens that was listed at the same time as this baby was listed was probably put in by my great-grandmother.
Okay.
It was her father. the Peter was her father. But I can't find anything else out about it.
And you didn't find a probate or anything?
Nope. I think he was penniless.
Okay. Boy, you're good with the stump though.
Well, these are the ones after 40 years that you keep going back to.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Anyone else have any ideas for her?
And a Volksblatt, the newspaper, German newspaper, I think I checked at Burton, and it wasn't published at that time, at the time that she said he died, that he was murdered.
Okay.
And that's all she put in the death thing was murdered.
We need a police blotter or something like that.
Yeah, don't we wish?
Yeah.
When did the cemeteries in Detroit, how old are they?
Well, they're pretty old. 1840s, 1850s. Elmwood's old.
Do you know where the family's buried?
There are 32 plots for Kingston in Elmwood Cemetery. And I've figured out who all of them are, and he's not there.
Okay.
Did you check with the cemetery office? Because I have family in the Polish cemetery in Grand Rapids, and they don't all have headstones.
Well, on this 32 grave plot, I think there are only 3 headstones. And all of the 32 are there. So I really don't know. And I have checked some of the cemeteries to see whether the name might be there. Because the parents are buried down in Stony Creek in Monroe County, and he's not there.
Where was the wife buried?
Well, that's another one. St. Elizabeth's Church said she was buried in St. Antonium Cemetery. The Catholic Archdiocese says that there weren't any burials there. The man, I can't think of his name now, who was very active in the Irish Society and very active in the Catholic Church, said, oh, yes, there was. They moved them all to Mount Elliot, but they did it in one mass grave.
Oh. You were looking for information from what time period? 18 what?
I think it was 1871 that she said he was murdered. And he had children baptized in Canada, in Wisconsin. Then they moved to Michigan about 1850. And they had a child that was buried from Assumption Grotto. And then they went to St. Mary's downtown, and they had other children baptized in St. Mary's. And I've looked at those Catholic records, and I haven't found him there. And my great-grandmother was alive. I knew her. She said that the girls in the family were raised by Protestant families, and that the boys were raised by Catholic families, and that's why the boys, her brothers, were Catholic and she was Protestant. But obviously she was married before her mother died. So I don't know whether her mother couldn't take care of her or what.
Mary Lou wins the prize for stumping everyone.
Yes.
I figured.
She's covered a lot of territory, so we're not saying anything new.
Oh, I wish I could help you. If I can't sleep one night, you know what I will be doing. I will be on newspapers.com searching away for you.
Well, it's interesting because my great-grandmother was married by the name of Stevens, although her name was and everything else.
When we want to talk to each other during the month, are we supposed to go to that chat room that you talked about already?
No, that's just for during this meeting. If you have a question, and like say someone doesn't have a microphone, but they're listening in, they can use the chat area to pose their question or give a suggestion and answer. So that's how that works on the side there.
What I'm trying to do is find where I can send college yearbooks to be digitized. Classmates has asked me for my high school yearbooks, but I've got college yearbooks I'd like to get digitized, and I don't know who to take them to, so that everybody gets a chance to see them.
What colleges?
Cleveland State University and Ashland University down in Ohio. You've heard about Classmates? That's
yes.
They do a lot of reunions for high school classes. But on Ancestry.com, I've gotten college yearbook pictures. So someone's doing it.
Well, Ancestry has got a whole yearbooks collection where they've gone through and digitized where they get permission. Some yearbooks.
I struggled to get a phone number for Ancestry this week, or Classmates, and I got frustrated.
Some of these places on the internet, you just have to email. Sometimes there isn't a phone support.
All right, thank you.
Also, with COVID, a lot of people are still working from at home, so they don't have the normal staff they would to answer telephones anyway. It's easy to route an internet connection or an email address to somebody's house. It's not easy to forward a phone anymore.
Oh, Betty Lou, David suggested if you could find a coroner record, but that might be as rare as a police blotter record for your Peter, for the time period that you're dealing with. I'm just looking through the chat.
I don't know if Burton has those.
Yeah.
People use school records. I mean, like their elementary school records, right?
If they're accessible, but sometimes they aren't. Any other questions? Kelsey, you have any questions or brick walls you want help with? We're not batting 100 today, so.
Yeah, our batting average is a little off on this.
Yeah,
evening.
this time it's a little off. I think we do better in person.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
I'm a lot of brick walls, but I'm not getting anywhere with them. Okay. Mainly in Oklahoma and South Carolina.
Yeah, Oklahoma records usually start a bit late. And South Carolina, the good stuff isn't necessarily digitized yet.
That's true.
It's more at archives.
The interesting thing is, if you're following death records, that the mother, Anna Maria Stevens Kingston, when she died, there's one death listing for the date in the Detroit Free Press, which I rather trust. There's a different one for the Wayne County records. There's a different date for the Michigan records. They all have the same year, but each one has a different month.
Oh, wow.
Oops.
I have a death record. There's 2 of them at the county level. And usually they track back to a copy at the state level. There's only 1 copy at the state level, and it seems to be a combination of the 2 death records at the county level. And it's like, okay, how'd that happen? But they each give different parts of the story of what happened to this individual. And then there's the newspaper articles that the closest one was the first one, and then you kind of have the telephone can syndrome where the story kind of changes as everyone copies the story throughout the state, because he died a rather sensational way, and first his name changes, goes from George Kane to George King, and then most of his age gets changed along the way. And then most of the details of how he died stayed the same, but it was fun putting it all together.
Let's not let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, I saw the index. We were in Port Huron and saw the index. And at that point, we had found the death record, and then the death certificate put more of it together. And the newspaper article, I'd seen the index, and I'm like, okay. So we went up to Port Huron, and that's where I confirmed that the George was really the George Kane death, and then realized more newspapers. And the only reason I found the additional copies was because they were being digitized. Any other brick walls? Thank you all for coming. Goodbye.
Bye.
Yep. Have a good evening.
Yep.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 9th, 2020. Our December meeting will be on digitized historical books in our Let's Talk Genealogy discussion format. Last but not least, MCGG extends its thanks to the Mount Clemens Public Library and its staff for hosting this Zoom meeting. Goodbye, everyone.